Welcome to the Business Builder Show. My name is Marty Wolf, and I am your host for the Business Builder Show. With me today, our special guest is Stephen M.R. Covey. He wrote a phenomenal book. It's called Trust and Inspire: How Truly Great Leaders Unleash Greatness in Others. Stephen M.R. Covey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Marty. So wonderful to be on the show with you. Thank you for hosting me.
It's been looking forward to it. I'm going to do a brief introduction because we want to get into the book. I've read the book two times and I've listened to it once already.
Wow.
So it's spectacular, Stephen. So congratulations. So introducing Stephen M.R. Covey is co-founder and CEO of CoveyLink and of the Franklin Covey Global Trust Practice, and the author of the New York Times internationally best-selling book, The Speed of Trust, which I've also used that with my clients, Stephen. So your writing and your dad's writing has been impactful to me and my clients. Stephen is a sought-after keynote speaker, author, and advisor on trust, leadership, ethics, culture, and collaboration. So, Stephen, let's begin with the end in mind. Okay?
Okay.
And so let's go back to, I guess, the beginning. What was your intention? What was your purpose? What was your goal in writing this book? And then I would hope that we have kind of a goal that we like to accomplish in this interview. So, what was the purpose? What was the goals when you wrote the book?
Yeah. Well, the goal was really this. It kind of grew out of my experience working with my father when he was living, and we did some presentations together. And he'd always, these are big audiences of people from all kinds of organizations, kind of an open public forums. And he'd ask people, how many of you believe that the vast majority of the people in your workforce have more talent, more ability, more energy, more intelligence, more creativity than their current job requires or even allows them to contribute? And almost every hand would go up with people saying, people have a lot more that they could give. And then the second question would be, and how many of you in your organizations believe that you're under, more pressure to produce more with less than ever before? And again, almost every hand goes up. And so, just look at that juxtaposition. People have to do more with less, and yet they're not even tapping into the capabilities and the talents of the people in their organizations. Kind of what's wrong with this picture? And the whole
Mm-hmm.
point is kind of the kind of leadership, the way we've been leading is not unleashing the capabilities, the talents, it's not tapping into all people are able to give. So this book is about how can we lead in a way that sees, communicates, develops, and unleashes the potential, the talent, the greatness that's inside of people, so that we can use that to help, solve our problems, create our opportunities, run with the strengths that is already inside of people. We need leaders that can unleash that kind of talent and potential. So this is a book about how truly great leaders can unleash the greatness in others. That's the idea.
And I think kind of the where you kind of started in terms of, I guess, the reasons why is that you have what you call the five emerging forces. So we should probably share that with folks to kind of give them a little more background. You think so?
Absolutely. These are kind of the forces of change that are encircling us today. First, the nature of the world has changed itself through technology. Think about it, the pace of change, the amount of change, the type of change, disruptive technologies changing everything.
Sure
Second,
is.
the nature of the work itself has changed. We're not in the industrial age anymore. We're in the knowledge worker age, or we're in the collaboration age, or the interaction age. It's service oriented. It's more collaborative, more interdependent than ever before versus the old kind of industrial age mindset.
Hmm. Hmm.
Third, the nature of the workplace has changed,
Oh yeah,
especially post the pandemic. But even
certainly.
before it was happening, but post the pandemic, work and again, I know we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but work from home, work from anywhere, remote work, hybrid work, intentionally flexible work, the whole idea of a workplace is changing in front of our eyes. Fourth, the nature of the workforce has changed. We have more
Mm,
diversity than ever before, as many as 5 generations at work with completely different expectations on how they want to be led. And
yeah.
fifth, the nature of choice has changed. We've gone from what we might call multiple choice to infinite choice. There's just so
Mm,
many options, so many choices people have, and so that they can choose to work with a company and live in a completely different state and or different part of the world and still work with that company that never was an option before. And so all these forces of change that are upon us where you can't know everything,
no,
with the changing pace of the world, where suddenly it really has changed everything, and it's made two things emerge for any organization today. And this whole idea of what you're doing with the business builders show, you're building businesses. Any business is facing these issues. The first is, how do we create a high trust culture
yeah,
that can attract, retain, engage, and inspire the best people and bring out the best in people so that we can win that war for talent? Attracting, keeping people is so critical today. A high trust culture is how we'll do it. Second, how can we collaborate and innovate so that we stay relevant in a changing world? Those are the imperatives, the two imperatives that emerge from those five forces. We gotta build a great culture that can, so we get the best people, and we got to collaborate and innovate so that we don't fall behind, to stay relevant. And my point is that command and control, the old style of leadership that maybe we did well in the past, that worked in the past, won't work in solving those two epic imperatives. You can't command and control your way to high trust culture, and you can't command and control your way to collaboration and innovation. We've got to move to a new kind of leadership, and I'm calling it trust and inspire, in
yeah.
contrast to command and control. And trust and inspire will enable us to build that kind of culture that inspires people, brings out the best in them, and will enable the innovation, the collaboration, so that we stay relevant. That's why we need to lead in this new way.
Stephen, I'm in full agreement, and I'm sure you're seeing it as I'm seeing it. There are some folks, some leaders who are interested in moving towards that. And unfortunately, you already know where I'm going. And unfortunately, there are a lot of folks who are not. I guess in time, they'll see this comparison between command and control and trust and inspire. I think the reality of it will start to show itself in the workplace. Do you
It,
agree?
it's going to, absolutely. It's going to become increasingly evident
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
command and control is dying, if not dead. And people might cling to it, but what will happen is they'll be less and less relevant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're gonna have a hard time keeping people. They're gonna have a hard time inspiring them. They're gonna have a hard
Yeah.
time innovating. And ultimately, it will be manifest that, you know what? Maybe it worked in the past, but it's not working anymore today. Not with all these changes that have hit us, not with these
Yeah.
imperatives that are upon us. And so what brought you, I love Marshall Goldsmith, where he
Yeah.
said, "What brought you here won't take you there."
Right.
And so maybe
Yeah.
command and control worked in the past, and maybe you feel like, well, this is who I am. I'm good at this, but it's not going to be relevant with Gen Z and millennials in this new world of work.
Yeah.
So we need a new way to lead a new world of work. And if you're clinging to the past, you'll become increasingly irrelevant. But the whole idea is less of a kind of saying you have to change because of the threat, and more like trust and inspire is such a better way to lead that
Yeah.
will engage and energize people and bring out the best in them, bring energy and joy to them.
Absolutely. And you've used the word inspire not only in your book several times. So I would like for you to talk a little deeper because I love this separation, the way you did this. Tell us more about motivation versus inspiration. I love
Yeah.
that, the way you separated that. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. The idea is to say, look, motivation is kind of external, it's extrinsic. And so you're trying to move people through rewards, through punishments, and get them to do things, motivate them externally, extrinsically, through incentives and the like to get them to do things. Carrot and stick.
Yeah.
And not necessarily a bad thing. It can be helpful and the like, but it's got its limits. Does it work? Sure, it motivates people to want to get more rewards. I think Daniel Pink said that. He's been on your show, and
He's been
and
on the show. Good
yeah,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, great guy. You want to get more rewards, but but the problem is you got to keep throwing more carrots at it, more sticks to try to get people to do that. So it's requires a lot of ongoing stimulus to make it work.
Yeah.
The idea of inspiration is that it's internal, it's intrinsic, it's inside of people. Our job is to breathe life into them and to ignite the fire that's within. And the great thing about inspiration, because it's intrinsic, if you ignite the fire within someone and help them find it within themselves, that can that can burn on for years
Yeah.
and without the need to constantly coming back to more incentives, more carrots, more sticks. This can just really just be a game changer for them. And so I love that the Latin word for inspirare, which means to breathe life into.
Yeah.
So when we
Very
inspire
good.
someone, we breathe life into the relationship, into the team, into the culture, as opposed to command and control tends to suck the life out of. And
And
that's the idea, but it's internal versus external.
and you've made the point here and in the book that it's already in them. We don't have to create something. It's already in them. So stay with that for a minute because
Yeah,
I may be jumping around a little bit. Forgive me.
that's
Um,
great.
but I think you said it. I think I'm saying it right. It's in the book, but I've already used this with several people, and I've given you credit. I said I love this from the book I just read from Stephen M.R. Covey. Greatness is in the seed. Greatness is in the seed. Wow. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's the metaphor that as a leader, you're a gardener and you're trying to create the conditions for the seed to flourish. But the power, the greatness is not in you, the gardener, it's in the seed.
Yeah.
And your job as a gardener, as a leader, is to be a gardener, create conditions for that seed to be able to grow, to
Yeah.
flourish, to blossom. But don't try to think it's about you. The
Yeah.
power, the greatness is in the seed, and the life is in the seed. You're just trying to create the conditions for that seed to flourish.
What a major paradigm shift if we could get one person that's listening to us right now. If we could get one person, I don't try to reach thousands and thousands of people, Stephen. I try to reach one.
I love
And if
it.
we do that, and 5 years from now, somebody heard Stephen M.R. Covey say that, and they report back to you in a few years and say, I heard that and I made changes. Isn't that what this is all about?
Precisely. Absolutely. Marty, I couldn't agree more
Yeah.
that that the whole idea of trust and inspire is that this is a better way to lead. And if you I would just ask our listeners and viewers to reflect upon maybe a person in your life who you would call a trust and inspire person or a trust and inspire leader in your life, someone who believed in you, someone who maybe took a chance on you, someone who maybe believed in you more than you believed in yourself, gave you an opportunity, trusted you, inspired you. It could be a family member, parent, could be a friend, a neighbor, could be someone at work, anyone, a mentor, a coach, but someone who saw your potential and really helped you come to see your own potential and they believed in you and gave you that opportunity. My guess is most of us have had someone like that, maybe more
Yeah.
than one. As you reflect back upon that person, think of what that did for you and how
Yeah.
you responded to it. I'll bet it brought the very best out in you and you wanted to prove it justified and did your very best work. You didn't need to be managed because you were being led by someone who
Yep.
believed in you. And so my reciprocal is, and this is the idea you just shared, what if, just like someone has been that for you, and maybe more than one, maybe there's been several people. What if you could be that kind of person, that kind of leader for another? And
Mm,
maybe just pick one relationship in your
yeah.
life, personal or professional, whatever you feel compelled, where you would say, what if I could become a trust and inspire leader to my child or to my colleague or to this person? What if I could become that kind of leader for them, just like someone has been for me? And if you could do it with one, you could do it with many.
And that'll keep going and keep going, and I have pictures right in
Yep.
front of me, of my cousin Eddie. Both people have passed away. My cousin Eddie, who I'm looking at right now, who I always prayed to before I started an interview because he had so much faith in me, and my
Wow.
coach, my high school basketball coach, I'm looking right at him, who put me in, and as a result of that, I ended up playing on a state championship basketball team because of Coach Burke. Okay, so we are listening to or watching Stephen M.R. Covey. His outstanding book is Trust and Inspire. I'm holding up Trust and Inspire: How Truly Great Leaders Unleash Greatness in Others. Stephen, a website that you want to drive people to, what would that be?
Yeah. Trustandinspire.com.
Excellent. That's easy.
Trustandinspire.com. And it's easy. It's the name of the book. And
Yeah.
there we've got some tools, resources, and
Yep.
videos, things you can use that be really practical.
I've already mentioned that I've read it twice in
I,
preparation for
I
this. I
love that
listened
you
to
have.
it. I've listened to it also. I do that often. Like, again, going back to the Seven Habits book, I must have read this 150 times. But even when I'm going to a client, if I'm on whatever, I'm on habit 5 or something, I'm going to a client, I'm listening to it for I don't know how many times. I think that's important. And I think your book warrants that too. People are going to get this right out of the gate listening to this
Yeah.
and or reading this. But this is the kind of thing you'll want to do over and over again. Take to your organization. Okay. So you mentioned the CEO of Microsoft more than once in the book. So
Yeah.
you are impressed. And apparently he is a trust and inspire leader. So talk to us about that.
Absolutely. Satya Nadella, a great example of a trust and inspire leader. In fact, I just saw just this in the last week. Um, Microsoft was honored for highest return on leadership. They're being recognized
Wow.
for extraordinary leadership, and it starts with Satya right at the top, and Kathleen Hogan, his chief uh, people officer, human resource officer, and the culture that they built. But when Satya came in, um, he was inheriting a company that kind of was seen as maybe
Yeah.
fading a little bit,
Yep.
right? They're still big, obviously, Microsoft, but they were not quite as relevant as they had been, not
Correct.
quite as cool a place to work, having a harder time
Correct.
keeping the talent, not innovating as much. But
Yeah.
in comes Satya Nadella with a growth mindset, not just for himself, but for everyone. He saw the potential, the greatness in people, and saw that his job was to create the conditions to unleash that potential, that greatness. And he did exactly that. He modeled the behavior with great humility, with
Yeah.
courage and humility, but also with empathy. Great listener. And then he trusted people and extended trust to people. He was trusting, not just trustworthy, which he was, but also trusting, gave the
Yeah.
trust to people. And then he inspired people. How? By connecting with people through caring and belonging. And he really focused on that, but also what connecting people to purpose,
So important.
purpose-driven organization, and that
Yeah.
inspires them. And
Yeah.
this combination of modeling, trusting, and inspiring kind of unleashed the capabilities, the talents that was inside of Microsoft. The seed, the seeds were there, the
Right.
greatness was there. He created the conditions for it to flourish, and they revitalized their organization. Today, they are winning in the workplace. That first imperative, the high trust culture that inspires, they're seen
Yep.
as a great, cool place to work again. They're also winning in the marketplace because they're innovating. They're the cloud powerhouse. They recently
Yep.
hit $2 trillion in market capitalization, one of
Wow.
only two companies to ever do that. And and
Yeah.
um, and their stock price under his leadership has dramatically improved. But this revitalization, this unleashing of the power, the capabilities, the greatness inside the people, inside the company was done through his leadership style. And yes, there was strategy, there was other things, but his style is what unleashed the capabilities the potential of the seed, the power that was in the seeds everywhere.
Yeah. So you queued me up for something else. You talk about um, the idea of your intent, uh, versus I'm losing my train of thought. But you talk about the intent
In your
as
style.
opposed to what you're actually doing, right? So
Yep.
talk to me about that.
Yeah. The premise is don't let your style get
There
in
you
the
go.
way of your intent.
Thank you.
And most people's intent, most leaders' intent is good. We want to help, we want to build the business. This is business builders. We want to grow the people. Usually we have good intent, but oftentimes our style gets in the way of that intent, where we might really care about people, but sometimes the style doesn't demonstrate it or show it. Or we might really say, look, I want to both get the result and build a relationship, but sometimes our style, how we
Yeah.
go about doing it, gets in the way of that. And this is
Yeah.
kind of a nice way of saying, look, most people's intent is good, but oftentimes our style gets in the way of it. And
Yeah.
so this is saying we might have a style that's more kind of old school, more
Yeah.
of the command and control, and even the better version of it, the enlightened command and control. And but our intent might be that I really do want to see the greatness. I see the power in the seed in the people. I want to unleash it, but I don't know how, or I'm not very good at it, or I'm worried that what if it doesn't work, and lots of reasons that might get in the way. But
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to make it safer for people to say, your intent is good, but maybe your style is getting in the way. So change your style, improve your style, rescript. You can move from command and control to trust and inspire and have a style of leadership that's more relevant for our world today. That's the
Yeah.
idea is that, and my dad started this with habit one, be proactive, that
Yeah.
we are not a program, we're a programmer. So we can write a new program. And so we are not our style, we can choose and change our style, and we can rescript and create a new style, trust and inspire, that's going to be timely and relevant for leading today.
Two thoughts as a response to that, and we've already kind of alluded to this. Maybe we actually said it, that it really starts with me. It starts with inside of the one person. If you're listening to this, watching this, if you're reading the book, it's not external. It's not somebody else, something else that somebody else has to do. It's something you have to decide to do. And the second thing I want you to comment on is it's not a light switch. If you've been doing something for 20 years, you know, if and it had some level of success, okay, and you address this in the book, but now you're seeing, maybe you're being forced to see it, or maybe the book inspired you. It takes time. Am I right there, Stephen?
Yes, on both fronts, it does take time. Um, old paradigms can live on for a long time.
Yeah.
And even if they're kind of proven to not be as effective, we can get good at something. We have a pattern and way, and it takes time to shift. And I also I'd say that to know and not to do is not to know. Sometimes we kind of know we need to do it, but we're just not there yet in
Yeah.
actually putting it into action, into practice. It takes time. So it is a journey. And
Yeah.
I like that because it's more generous to ourselves
Correct.
we've got a good intent, but maybe we haven't quite caught up our style with our intent. And so we see ourselves as on the journey of becoming a trust and inspire leader. But I'll tell you what, for many, they might truly be a trust and inspire person, a generosity of
Mm,
their heart, and it's in
hmm.
them. And maybe they're just learning more. How do I do this in an organizational setting and still make sure I have control to get the job done? Because we got to get the result, and we want to do it in a way that grows the people. And how do I build those agreements? So I do think that to see it as a journey is a really useful thing, as opposed to kind of all or nothing, yes or no. It's a
Yeah.
process of getting
It's
there.
not either or.
It's not
It's
either or.
and you got
Yeah,
to
and
take one step at a time and be kind to yourself.
be
You
very
know.
kind to yourself. See
You
yourself
know.
as on the journey, and
Yeah.
what matters more is your intent. Intent matters more than technique. Intent matters more than style. But I do say, if you can match your style with your intent, then that's when you'll be hitting your sweet spot. That's when you'll be into flow, and you'll be able to find that you're able to lead at a whole nother level and unleashing the greatness. But I love what you came back to as the main point is that high trust teams and cultures are created from the inside out. It
Yeah.
starts with each of us looking in the mirror and,
Yes.
saying, am I, it's not waiting on everybody else to change because you might be a leader of a team or manager and you might say, well, this sounds like a good idea, but it's not going to work in my company or with my
Yeah.
boss or in
Yeah.
our
How many times?
industry We're a command and control industry and with heavy compliance and regulation. But you know what? You could be a island of excellence in a sea of mediocrity. You could be an island of high trust in a sea of distrust. You can be the model that can become the mentor. You always go inside out. And don't think the problem is out there, everybody else.
Mm,
See it as that I'm going to look in the mirror, not out the window, and I'm going to take responsibility. And I'm going to give people an example of a trust and inspire leader and that maybe others can get hope from that you can do this. That's the main takeaway is that this is trust and inspire is happens from the inside out. So my job as a leader is to go first.
go first. Yes. Go first. I was going down that road. So you said it. Go first. You have, and sometimes that takes a little courage.
Takes
You,
a
you,
little
you
courage.
you know, again, it's the famous word, the paradigm, and if you're looking for someone else to solve it, it's not going to come from there. But here's another thing: what you've just said, and I've experienced this as you have. You've worked with companies. I've experienced this firsthand. That becomes a very distinctive part of the company. You become more distinctive to your customers and to your vendors when they see this. I've helped companies write visions that had purposes in them and
Yeah.
mission statements. And I'm telling you, we've gone to private equity groups, and the private equity groups have said, "Wow, we've never seen anything like this before." Well, it may not be exactly trust and inspire, but it's close to it and it's moving towards it. That becomes a distinctive factor. I'm sure you've seen that also.
Absolutely. It is a differentiator
Hmm.
because you are modeling what's possible. And
Yeah,
you're tapping into purpose, into meaning, into contribution. And that taps into the whole person. That's why people want to be inspired because they're not just an economic being. They're whole
right.
people with a body, a heart, a mind, a spirit. So they want to be inspired. They want to have purpose. They want to have significance. They want to matter. And Trust and Inspire is trying to tap into that. And it is distinctive. And when it's there, people are drawn to it like a magnet and it inspires them.
It
And
does.
you'll not only attract and retain the best people, you'll engage and inspire them. And you'll bring out the best in them. And then when others look at this, they'll look at you as a model of what's possible. And you'll be
Absolutely.
distinctive. And when you're a
Absolutely.
model, you can become a mentor. You can literally lift others up and improve society ultimately by just looking in the mirror, starting with yourself.
I've seen people, customers, well, I'll say I'm customer service people, they're engineers, but they're talking to customers. I've heard conversations they've had, and I'm going like, wow. I mean, they've used words like win-win, and as they're having
Yeah.
conversations. You can't tell me that's not a differentiator. It is, and they're the ones that have the relationships because they see that company. Again, we're use the words as somebody who they can trust, and who actually they're inspiring their vendor or their customer, one at a time.
Yep, you can literally one relationship at a time be the catalyst to
Yeah,
bring about the change by you modeling and you going first. The whole idea is that while it takes two or more people to have trust, it only takes one to start. And see, each of us can be
very
that
good.
one. And you
Yeah,
can be the one that also, if you want more trust on the team, then model both trustworthiness, but also model trusting
yeah,
being
it's
willing to
important.
extend trust to others and have that first truster advantage
Yeah,
of when you give it, what that does to people, even with partners and suppliers and distributors. When you model that you extend trust to them and believe in them, they tend to perform better and give it back. You got to be smart about it. I call it smart.
sure, sure.
Use good judgment, but someone needs to go first. It takes courage. You were right. But there's a huge advantage when you lead out this way.
First truster advantage. Wow, I love that. So, so let's give them some. I guess I'll say practical. You towards the end of the
Yes.
book, you say, "Hey, look, and I've heard them all before. We can't do it here. We can't do it. Here's the myths. Here's the problems. Here's what you." So I don't want to go in deep into that. Read the book. You have to read the book, folks. Um, but maybe this would help them if you talked about the difference or these distinguishing thing between a thing paradigm and a people paradigm. That might be something fundamental for them to get their heads wrapped around.
I think so. And this could be one takeaway, this mindset that could really make a difference for you, any of our listeners and viewers as leaders. And the whole idea is that command and control operates with a thing paradigm where you manage people and things. Trust and inspire operates with a people paradigm where you manage things, but you lead people. See, it's not either or, it's and. We need good management. We need great management. We also
Absolutely.
need great leadership. What we
Yeah.
need, though, is great management of things, of
Yeah.
systems, of processes, of structures, of finances, and calendars, and inventories, and
Absolutely.
strategies. You manage things, you lead people. But the problem is we become so good at management, we start to manage people as if they were things. And when
Yeah.
you manage people like they're things, you'll end up probably with no people and a lot of things because people won't want to be there.
Yeah.
People don't want to be managed. People want to be led.
Yeah.
They want to be trusted. They want to be inspired. So the key distinction is manage things, lead people. Be efficient with things, be effective with people. The moment
Yeah.
you try to be efficient with people, you'll lose your effectiveness.
I would suggest you read both books by Stephen M.R. Covey. Speed of Trust is a good one to start. Again, I've already read that, and we've used that. I've used that in a couple organizations as a piece. And these organizations that I work in, not all of them succeed because some of them simply don't listen or learn, as you well know, Stephen.
I
But
do.
the ones who stayed with it, but I will also trust and inspire truly is it's it's something new that's added to a strong foundation, new insights, new building blocks for today's workforce, for today's leaders. Stephen talked at the beginning of the five emerging forces going on in our world. It's no clue to leaders that you now have a hybrid workplace. You now have people who are overseas, whatever is going on. Okay. You need, you need, I'm sorry I'm preaching. Forgive me. You need to look at things differently. So, Trust and Inspire by Stephen M.R. Covey. The subtitle is How Truly Great Leaders Unleash Greatness in Others. So, Stephen, let's wrap up. And I always like to just ask people. I loved our conversation, but we may have missed something that you want to make sure that you want to drive home, or something to make it even more memorable than it always is. So I'll turn it over to you, and you can kind of give us some parting words.
I would just say this that I love what you said earlier, Marty. We're on a journey. It's not kind of a light switch on and off. It's a process. But the key to becoming a trust and inspire leader is to first become a trust and inspire person. So start in your home, start
Yeah.
in your neighborhood, in your community. See the potential in people. Because I love the quote by Thoreau: "It's not what you look at; it's what you see." So when you look at someone, whether it's a family member or a friend or someone at work, do you see their potential? Do you see the greatness that's inside of them? Do you see the seed with the potential for greatness? Because if you don't see it, they're going to probably have a hard time seeing it themselves. And you
Sure.
certainly can't unleash it. But if you do see it, then you could communicate it to them so they can come to see it. Then you could develop it by giving them opportunities and development and trusting them. That gives them opportunities. And then you could unleash it to help build the business, the organization, and themselves. And so I would just say that let's just start with that simple paradigm that that as a trust inspired leader, I believe that people have greatness inside of them. So my job as a leader is to unleash their potential, not to try to control them. And if that's
Excellent.
the mindset, if you just start with that, I think you'll see the world in a whole new light if your job as a leader. You're a gardener, not a mechanic. You're creating conditions for that seed to flourish, for the people to flourish. The power, the life is in the people, in the seed.
Stephen M.R. Covey, his book again is Trust and Inspire: How Truly Great Leaders Unleash Greatness in Others. Stephen, thank you so much for being a guest on the Business Builder Show. It's been a remarkable conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marty, for hosting me. I've had a lot of fun. I appreciate all you're doing, Marty, to
Thank you.
build businesses and also build leaders.